I don't know, transitions happen.
Transitions, yeah. Well, from raccoons to groundhogs.
Yes.
So my thing of the week was, of course, the classic comedy, Bill Murray comedy, Groundhog Day, because today is Groundhog Day. So I thought I'd go back and revisit this movie. Hadn't seen it in a few years, so wanted to give it another watch. Still holds up. It's still pretty funny. Of course, Bill Murray's Bill Murray. It's Bill Murray in his prime. Um, Ninja Toes is his dad's watching this movie right now. um, but for those of you who maybe have never seen this movie, it's one of my favorite comedies too. Ninja. It's So Bill Murray plays Phil Connors. He's a Pittsburgh weatherman, and he's sent to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, to cover the annual Groundhog Day festival. And he goes out there with his cameraman, who's played by Chris Elliott. He's been in a bunch of stuff, and his new producer, who's played by Andy McDowell, and she's the love interest in the movie. And of course, he doesn't want Murray's. Phil is just a jerk. It starts off he's very self centered. He's very narcissistic. He's in the beginning of the movie. He's like, well, I'm getting calls from other networks, and then when he goes out to Punxsutawney to cover the festival, he just doesn't want to do it. He don't want to be there, and they end up getting snowed in. They can't leave town, so they have to spend the night there. And of course, if you've seen the movie, you know what happens. But he wakes up and it's Groundhog Day all over again. And so he's stuck in this time loop of where it's Groundhog Day every day. And like with a lot of movies that are time loop, they use the time loop as a plot device. It's mainly about the character that's caught in the time loop. So they go from they have to go from the progression of being, usually they change. So they go from being like just a total jerk to good person. And of course that's what happens here with Bill Murray. He goes on that same journey because as he's staying in the town, and he starts to get to know all the people in the town. There's a great scene in there where he's with Andy McDowell, and he's pointing out all the people. Oh, this is the waitress. This is Dolores, and she wants to go to, and she's been working here since she's 17. Her brother-in-law owns the place, and she wants to go see Paris before she wants to visit Paris before she dies. And she's like, oh yeah, he's right, and he's pointing out all everybody. And there's that part of it, and then of course the Ned Ryerson, Phil Connors.
Yeah, I was like, wasn't it like one day he asked him these questions, and then the next, no, he used that to seduce a woman at some point.
Yes, yeah. He sees this, he sees this woman at the diner, and he asks her, like, where did you go to high school? She says, oh, I went to da da da, and your English teacher, 12th grade English teacher was Mrs. Whatever. Oh, okay. And then the next day he's like, oh, hey, Nancy, it's me.
I had the biggest crush on you.
Yeah. I asked you to the prom. But yeah,
a lot of gaslighting.
Yeah, a lot of gaslighting there. Oh yeah, and he does that with Andy McDowell too. He starts finding out all this stuff about her. Like, he sees her at the bar, and he's like, oh well, can I buy you a drink? And she's like, yeah, sure. And he orders a Jim Beam and water, and she orders a sweet vermouth with a whatever. And he's like, oh. But then, like, the next go around, he orders the same thing, and she's like, "Oh, that's my favorite drink." Really, me too. And of course, he takes a sip of it, and he's just like, "Oh, good." But yeah, it's a funny movie, and it was co-written and directed by Harold Ramis. Of course, Harold Ramis directed. No, he didn't direct Animal. No, that was Landis. He co-wrote Animal House, but he directed like uh, Caddyshack and trying to
If
think
I
one.
can, if I can interject for a second,
Yeah,
Caddyshack might be like one of the most incoherent movies I've ever seen when you really think about it.
it is. Yeah, it is. But here the weird thing though, that the little sidetrack. Like you ask any professional golfer playing right now, you ask them what their favorite movie is, they'll all tell you it's Caddyshack. Like
Uh,
every single one of them.
it's like I've heard that like, if you go to law school, My Cousin Vinny is required watching basically, and people will quote it all the time.
Yeah. But yeah, and of course, most people know Harold Ramis from Ghostbusters, which was also with Bill Murray. And they were, and unfortunately, this was the last movie that they collaborated on, because they had a falling out when they were making the movie. And I watched the movies that made us series, and
Mhm.
I watched the episode on Ghostbusters, and they interviewed Ramis's daughter, and she said nobody really knows what happened between the two of them. One story that I heard was that they did have some like creative differences with the movie. Like Murray wanted it to be more philosophical, and Ramis just wanted to stick to the comedy. Uh,
Mm.
but yeah, because this was kind of a weird time where Murray was trying to be like Tom Hanks, where he was trying to move away from comedies and trying to do more serious stuff.
Every actor, every comedic actor does this. Will
Yeah,
Smith did it. Uh,
yeah. Robin Williams,
yeah,
yeah,
even
Steve
Adam
Carell, yeah,
Sandler made sporadic attempts at it.
yeah, Jim Carrey, yeah,
It's like, no, look, I'm sorry. You are a funny person.
yeah.
Me-
Be funny. uh, but yeah, I mean, I think this movie still holds up really well. I actually saw it in the theater when it came out. Uh, if you want to feel old, this movie came out 30 years ago.
Oh no.
Yeah, yeah, it came out February of 1993. But
It's
yeah, but yeah, I mean, this is a good movie to watch, even not on even if you don't want it. You don't even have to watch it on Groundhog Day. You can watch it any time of the year, really.
yep. Just set your calendar on your computer to February 2nd, out of
Yes,
solidarity.
yes. But yeah, that's Groundhog Day.
All right. Well, so it occurs to me that there is a little bit of appropriateness besides it being Groundhog Day itself.
Yeah.
Um, this is going to feel like a bit of a repeat because my thing of the week is Hi-Fi Rush. Now it's kind of a repeat because Hi-Fi Rush has actually managed to be not only my thing of the week, but also one of our topics of the week.
Yeah.
So I'm going to divorce those two things so that it's easy for Daniel to make the video later.
Yes.
So we're going to look here at Hi-Fi Rush as a product. So one of my, if not my favorite Xbox exclusives of the Xbox One era, you might go, there were Xbox One exclusives in the Xbox One era? Yes, there were. Just a lot of them were kind of half-baked or didn't go anywhere or got canceled like
Mm,
Scalebound. But what
yeah.
the one that I was upset that more people didn't like was a little game called Sunset Overdrive. Sunset Overdrive, which is actually still available if you have Game Pass or if you, I think it's on Game Pass, where you can pick it up on Steam or Xbox. It's basically you're a janitor in a town where an evil company comes out with a new energy drink that makes people mutate into zombies. And the game was all about freedom of motion, grinding on rails, Ratchet and Clank style weapon systems, and a ridiculous over the top scenario.
Okay.
Uh, this game is the closest we are going to get to a Sunset Overdrive 2. And so I'm going to give a little bit of context. So last week on Wednesday, I was completely miserable. My day job had me so exhausted that I just ended up coming home, turning on my Xbox, and I was just, grumpy bear. Just nothing was going to make me happy. So I happened to turn it on, and I had forgotten that they were going to do their showcase that day. So I turn on the Xbox, like, "Hey, showcase is starting in 30 seconds. You want to watch?" It's like, "Oh, I guess as long as I'm here."
Yeah.
So they started off with so they started off with a Minecraft thing. I don't care about Minecraft, but whatever, good for them.
Uh-huh.
And then then they go into this here's either their Redfall game first and then this, or this and then Redfall.
Mm.
And I'm watching this like, what is this? This wasn't leaked. They managed to drop this completely unleaked, and it's this ridiculous anime meets Saturday morning cartoons, um, rock and roll beat 'em up action game with a rhythm element. Um, and they hit the end of the presentation. They say, "Oh, by the way, you can play it right now
Huh.
because of Game Pass."
Huh.
So me, grumpy bear mode, said, "Oh, okay, I'll give this a shot." And it turned my mood quite a bit around. Like I was much happier after an hour or so. Of this, I still was so tired. I went to bed at 7 o'clock in the evening, but still, it was a nice ending to the day. And just like Sunset Overdrive, premise here is you're a you're a loner wannabe rock and roll star who can't actually play the guitar, but he's sure he'll get there. Named Chai. The main characters are named after T's.
Ah.
Uh, and he volunteers for this project, but there's a manufacturing defect. His iPod gets embedded in his chest, and because of it doesn't have to make sense. It's a magical realism video game. The beat of whatever song is playing on the iPod stuck in his chest is being implanted onto reality. So all enemies, objects in the environment, everything else is moving in rhythm to whatever song he's listening to at the time.
Ah. Huh.
So it's kind of a Devil May Cry beat 'em up, where you get where the challenge isn't just you can just do basic combos, but you can unlock more combos as you go, and you get more points and do more damage to the enemies if you can time your attacks sync with the in sync with the beat of the song.
Oh.
And they have ways to help out with that. I've turned those off because it's kind of distracting to have the little metronome thing at the bottom of the screen,
Yeah.
and I want to get better on my own,
Oh.
which I have been slowly getting better.
Huh.
But this game is just an absolute blast. It at first it feels a little too simple, like you're kind of just wandering around, uh, destroying things in the environment to get materials for reasons you aren't sure about, and every so often you're interrupted by an enemy attack.
Yeah.
But they are slowly layering on a pretty complex battle system so that you can grasp it as you go.
Ah. Okay.
So I've beaten the first two levels. Um, I will say that there are aspects here that okay, like let's just zoom in on this character here. Du-du-du-du-du. Doesn't she kind of look like by the way, the side of the hair that you can't see shaved?
Of course.
Doesn't she look like every obnoxious know-it-all girl power character you've seen in the last 10 years?
Yes.
She works. Like
Oh.
she's kind of like that Lego girl where it's like, okay, that's her tropes, but her banter with the main character Chai here, who's kind of like a Star Lord style lovable idiot,
Ah.
actually works. And like they get the better, like he gets the better of her occasionally, and the game is based on his growth, so it all tracks.
Yeah. Yeah.
This little cat here, freaking adorable. It bobs around you most of the time, helping you keep. It's pulsing to help you keep the beat.
Ah.
This guy, I do not recall his name because I only just met him half a level ago. But he's like a big strong guy you can summon to punch through things, and he's like a kind of nebbish mad scientist. And this robot here is great. Like he draws with a dry eraser mark to give himself expressions. He's like a psychologist robot who's very like basically has the bedside manner of Doctor Strange. Okay, Holy Ninja says, I think I'm falling in love with Corsica, the redhead security lady. She is a top tier best girl. She's this one
Ah,
back here.
okay.
But the game is also just full of all sorts of ridiculously wonderful references on top of the gameplay. Like
Huh.
the first villain is a big, muscular wrestle woman, and like,
Yeah.
but it's like if you took Macho Man Randy Savage, made him a woman, and then made her work in corporate America. And when you beat her, the achievement is the cream of the crop. Um, there's a mad scientist character who doesn't appear in this picture. He is 100% at JoJo's references. He's constantly doing those Iraqi poses all over the
Yeah,
place.
yeah, Ninja Turtle. Yeah, he
Yeah, yeah,
says the
yeah,
same thing. Yeah,
yeah. It's that's about as far as I've gotten in, but it's just it's fun. I mentioned last week that with Puss in Boots, it was the kind of effortless stylishness that made you wonder why can't every movie be this good? It isn't actually that complicated.
yeah.
This feels like it's a bit harder to pull this off than that, just because gameplay you have to factor in too,
Hmm.
uh, all those systems you're building. But this is this is a pretty amazing accomplishment in my opinion, and to just come out of nowhere and make the impact that it has, like people are already calling this a possible game of the year candidate.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna have to play this game.
Yes, yes, you will.
I will be
Uh,
playing this game at some point. Yeah.
Also, I'm glad I see that we have a couple more Sunset Overdrive appreciators in the
Oh
environment
yeah.
or in the chat here.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I guess I wasn't the only one who appreciated it, so that's good.
Yeah.
Between this and Puss in Boots and Persona 5, it's been nice to just have some media that I stumble into that doesn't set off a lot of alarm bells, or when the alarm bells are set off, it
Yeah.
turns out it's like, no, she's just like, she's fine. Don't,
Yeah.
Also, Holy Ninja kind of stealing my thunder here slightly, but thanks for reminding me because I had kind of drifted off of that. Uh, so this was a game that is modestly budgeted, and it was done by the studio who did The Evil Within as a way to train up their next generation of developers and just to do something extremely different. Like they're Tango Games, Tango GameWorks. I think it's Tango GameWorks.
Mm.
They're basically known for nothing but horror games, and they
Ugh.
come out with this.
They do this. Wow.
But
I yeah.
this is yeah it's this was so good that I actually decided to just purchase it outright. And if they come out with a physical edition, I'll probably pick up that as well because please, we need more games like this. I want a Hi-Fi Rush 2, and I'm not even done with the game yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the art style on this. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great animation too, both traditional and just the way the characters move around.
Yeah.
It's it feels like you could have probably done a game in this general style on a Dreamcast or a PS2,
Mhm.
but just you wouldn't have the same polish on it. So it
Mm.
feels like it's a good use of modern technology to not try to like get every pixel on every blade of grass, but to just to like
Yeah.
sell a story and sell a story, sell a vibe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Also, they were Good Guy Greg, and they have a streamer mode where it will give you more generic rock music to be the beat of the level because they know that they don't want people getting flagged for trying to stream it.
Ah. Well, that's good of them to do that. Yeah, thinking of streamers like that. Wow.
Yep. So I think that's everything I have to say about this game as a piece of media. Um,
Mhm.
all right, that's our transition point.
Oh, the transition point. Okay.